The chords are pretty irresistible any way you look at it. If you're a lover of magic and all things supernatural, I take it you do love my guest of the day.
94.3.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K.
The world-famous illusionist and magician Dynamo is with me. Dynamo, great to see you. I hope your friends, family, colleagues, extended family are all doing all right in this COVID-19 crisis.
Yeah, we're doing good. Obviously, it's been tough times for everybody around the world, and I hope everyone's staying safe where you are as well.
So far, so good. It seems like you have almost like a karmic connection to India. You know, I've seen these YouTube videos, you getting out into the shanty towns, what we call the slums, regular middle-class neighborhoods in and around Indian cities and doing your magic. And the people are just going nuts, the kind of love that you've received. And you must be very sensitive to the fact that we grew up with magic. We believe in magic, and it's such an important part of our lives.
First and foremost, when I come to India, the fans are just absolutely incredible. It doesn't matter whether I'm in slums or in the posher areas. Like for me, I grew up in, I guess, the equivalent of like a slum here in the UK, in a council estate. And I always felt that people from outside of that world didn't really take me seriously. So I had to kind of break down those barriers. And then I wanted to also share that with other people when I went and travelled around the world, just to show that there is opportunities, and it doesn't matter where you come from, you can make yourself, successful in any walk of life if you believe in yourself. Like I said, when I come to India, like just the adoration from the fans is just like overwhelming. I have such an amazing time, and I just love everyone out there.
But Dynamo, I have to say this, that magicians and clowns to me are great social servants, if you ask me that, because you guys allow us to sometimes break away from reality, the pain of our daily existence or the bane of our daily existence. And I saw this wonderful piece that you did in Syria, in Lebanon, where you went around and you actually met the children and hung out in the schools and put a smile on everybody's face. And you must really understand that social responsibility, the fact that you bring joy to people's lives.
When I went to Syria, it was actually Lebanon, sorry, it was to help get the Syrian refugee children who have been displaced there into education, as there was over, I think, 600,000 children not in education at that time. And through doing that campaign, we were able to get 400,000 of them into schools, and hopefully we're working to get the rest of them in schools as well. As I think, education for the next generation is super important. Just also, like you said, children have this childlike state of mind where they believe anything is possible. So it's important that we nurture and inspire them when their minds are still young and potentially not being covered with skepticism by being told you can't do this and you can't do that. And I think magic is a great connector and a great way to kind of suspend people's disbelief.
Well said, suspending disbelief. I'm going to come to why you love traveling to do your magic. I mean, I'm given to understand that Dynamo Beyond Belief, which is the new show, also has you traveling around the world. You could just be doing this all in your backyard in Yorkshire or London or wherever you live. But you choose to go out into communities in cities around the world and do your magic. Why so?
When I was a little boy, I couldn't afford to travel anywhere. It was tricky even getting off of the estate and going into the local town. So I always used to read books. I'd read books about, the pyramids in Egypt, or, I'd read books about India or just incredible places. And I always dreamed when I got older to try and travel to these places. I was happy to live vicariously through the author's interpretation of these places. And when I obviously got more successful and got the opportunities to travel, I wanted to kind of go and see the rest of the world and see how people reacted to magic in different parts of the world. And it's been so incredible, especially making Beyond Belief, my new series, where I've filmed in Japan, which was a dream of mine to do. I filmed in Russia, filmed in Mexico, America, and we went to Dubai, all over the place. And what's really interesting is when you put the reactions, it doesn't matter whether they're people, if they're people working in factories or people, famous people or, just like a street sweeper. When you put all the reactions side by side, you just see human emotion and all the reactions are the same. And it just shows us that we're all connected and we're all the same and we're all equal. And magic is a great way of kind of leveling that and sharing incredible moments with people that they'll never ever get to see otherwise.
The human and emotional connect in magic. Well said. Dynamo the Magician is hanging with me. Time to bring on a friend of his. Yes, English singer-songwriter Ed Sheeran with Don't. I'm Hrishi K. And you're tuned into 94.3 Radio 11 World, your station. B.O.B. with So Good. This man is so good. Boasts the remarkably successful TV series Dynamo Magician Impossible. Internationally acclaimed super magician Dynamo returns with Dynamo Beyond Belief, and he is my guest of the day.
94.3.
This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K.
How much of magic is hard work, precision and how much is technique?
I think to be good at anything, it takes precision and technique and a lot of hard work. You know, anything that's worth doing is going to be difficult, but then the results are worth it. So for me, when I first started doing magic, you know, initially, I think I had a natural flair for it. When my grandpa first started teaching me stuff, I picked it up quite quickly, but then it's been, 25 years of constant work and progression to kind of get to the level that I'm at today.
And in that aspect, I see some of the magicians or the illusionists of the past, the David Copperfields and the Franz Heraris and Houdini was much before our time. You can't help but marvel saying they did not have the techniques that were there at our disposal and they still managed to do stuff. So would you say Houdini is one of your big influences, or is there any other magician?
Houdini is true master, one of the best. I wish I would have been alive in his time to see his performances for real, because all I've heard about is the myths and the legend. But he was such an inspirational, pivotal character in magic, and he really understood the element of surprise and the element of kind of danger. And I definitely have taken inspiration. Like, there's some things in my new show where I've kind of very risky and dangerous things, especially the finale to the whole series. I don't want to ruin it for you, but the big finale is probably the riskiest thing I've ever done. The finale of episode 2 as well was by far the most dangerous physically. If that had gone wrong, then probably would be having this conversation with right now. So I definitely have taken inspiration from people like Houdini, who really pushed the limits of their body as well as their magic.
Well, I've seen some teasers of Dynamo Beyond Belief. One of them has you in a really fancy car, almost like how do I describe it, like a NASCAR kind of thing. So is cars one of your big things?
I've always loved cars, and I've always said that if I wasn't a magician, I'd love to be a stunt car driver for like films like Fast and Furious or James Bond, like the driving sequences. So yeah, whenever I get the opportunity to bring cars and magic together, it's like the ultimate combination for me. I'm like a kid in a candy store. When we filmed in Japan, one of the things I wanted to do was go to like a Fast and Furious style car meetup. So that was one of the best experiences of my life, and that is part of the finale to episode 2. So yeah, definitely something that I think people will like. It's such a cool thing. I mean, probably one of the coolest things I've ever done.
Your TV show, Dynamo Magician Impossible, ran for 4 or 5 years, and it was really loved. You picked up a lot of awards for it. For people who haven't seen the show, what was that about?
So Magician Impossible was the first kind of foray into a big TV series. It was my kind of big break in some respects. I'd spent many years doing small bits of TV and trying to get myself known, and then I got the opportunity to make this show where I got to bring some of my biggest ideas to life, where I walked across the River Thames, I levitated at Christ the Redeemer, came and filmed in India, we filmed in Varanasi, and we filmed at Holy Festival, one of the most incredible backdrops for magic ever, in probably one of the most mystical, magical cities that I've ever been to. There was something, definitely, magic was in the air when I was filming in India. It was so good. We filmed that series for pretty much like back to back for 5 years, and then I finished making that series and I went to do a tour, and then unfortunately I fell sick. I had to put on my future plans on hold because I was trying to make this TV show like 4 years ago, Beyond Belief, but because of my illness, I've got Crohn's disease and I have some underlying health conditions that have always kind of crept up on me when I've least expected it. Rather than disappear completely, I would keep a video diary for myself, and I would we documented as much as possible of the recovery, and that plays a big part in the new show Beyond Belief, because I think it's important that people understand what I was going through, because all of the magic that I created for the new show I developed when I was in my hospital bed. I wrote it down in my little notebook, and the magic basically is very different from what you might have seen in the past, but in a good way. And luckily I was able to get back to health and create a new show and travel the world, and finally Beyond Belief is here, 18th of July, 9 p.m. on History TV 18, and I just genuinely can't wait for people to see it.
Yeah, that was actually, you preempted one of my questions, which is, you could have easily left the part about your illness out and just concentrated on the magic. But now that you say that it was such an important part of the process because you were writing that diary of yours, it just makes sense why you would have that in the series. The rise and rise of Dynamo the Magician even after a life-threatening illness. His story shall continue with me up ahead. Don't go anywhere. My name is Hrishi K, and let's enjoy some Ellie Goulding and Power on 94.3 Radio on One World, your station. Lady Gaga and Beyonce, the two divas with their monster hit Telephone. Stephen Frayne from Bradford in the United Kingdom is now world famous as Dynamo the Magician. He's toured the world, and his Seeing is Believing arena tour was seen by over 750,000 people across the UK, Australia, South Africa and New Zealand. I'm chatting with the man here and now.
94.3. This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K.
Has a magic trick gone drastically wrong ever? Did you ever get laughed at, a small gig, large gig, and then just went completely anxious about why didn't this go right?
When I was first starting out, definitely things would have gone wrong. And I think early on, even the kids at school that I was performing for didn't really understand me, and they would make fun of the magic. So it's kind of, taken many years for me to find myself in it and feel confident enough just to be myself when I'm performing. I think the success of Magician Impossible and some of the previous successes before that gave me the self-belief to just keep pushing through with my vision and my determination. And yeah, obviously I practice as much as I can and I work hard to try and bring the impossible to life, but I am attempting the impossible. So if things can go wrong, they will go wrong. Luckily, I'm here to tell the stories and tell the tales about what's happened, and you're going to get to see it all in the new show.
Yeah, which brings me to a logical question. I mean, your name isn't really Dynamo. It's something else.
No, my mum calls me Stephen.
Yeah, I'm sure your family calls you by your real name. So when did Stephen really become Dynamo?
So in the year 2001, I was invited to, ironically, a Houdini Centennial event in New York, where a lot of the famous magicians were there, everyone from David Blaine, David Copperfield, Penn and Teller, Siegfried and Roy. And it was to honour 100 years since one of Houdini's bigger monumental moments. And I was asked to perform there. And halfway through my performance, this guy stands up, one of my peers, a magician called Aaron Fisher. He stood up and he goes, "This kid's a dynamo." And for the rest of the week, all of the famous magicians, the people that I looked up to, would refer to me as the Dynamo Kid. And then as I came back to the UK and decided that I was going to make magic my living, I ended up just taking the name Dynamo, which was given to me by people that I really looked up to. So it was kind of given to me by, some legendary magicians in New York.
Well, it certainly rings better for the world of magic when you say Dynamo as opposed to Steve. There's no doubt on that.
Yeah.
We're living in the new normal, Dynamo. I mean, these videos like this, interacting on video media has become the new normal. I know you've done these sold out shows and you've had live gigs where you've traveled around the world, 750, 800,000 people across the UK, Australia. You're seeing is believing arena tour. But my question is, have you got a whole new bag of tricks to do online? Are you still working on them? If you have something ready, I'd love for you to try something on me.
I am definitely working on stuff. I think it'd be interesting to do a virtual tour. And definitely, once it's ready, I'm going to be hitting you up this year and giving you a little sneak preview. But I'll save it for now. But yeah, I think the new normal, it's good in some ways because it's forcing us all to basically adapt to the new situation. And it's causing us to learn and find new ways to do things. So some of the ideas I've got that hopefully you'll get to see in the future, really exciting using this new medium. And maybe, I'd love to come to India and do a physical live tour in the future. But until that happens, there's still definitely potential to do a tour online where people can just tune in from wherever they are and experience the magic firsthand.
And I can only imagine what the Seeing is Believing tour must have been like. Did you levitate over the audience in the stadiums?
Yeah, it was I'm not going to lie, the Seeing is Believing tour was the best experience of my life. If I had the opportunity, I'd still be touring that show right now because it was so good walking on stage every night to 12,000 people and just performing in venues that, I was performing in the same type of venues as Kanye West and, like big superstars where they do rock concerts. And to do magic in those venues was unheard of. So to be able to do that, it's something that I want to keep doing. And hopefully when the world goes back to normal, I'll be able to do a tour. And I'd love to be able to bring that tour to India as well.
Can't wait for that to happen. Dynamo, the king amongst modern day magicians, is chatting with me about his life and times. Let's add some music to that. It's Bon Jovi and Have a Nice Day. I'm Hrishi K. And you're tuned into 94.3 Radio 1 One World, your station. Kylie Minogue is spinning around. Internationally acclaimed magician and illusionist Dynamo is my guest of the day. The celebrated magician has over the years left audiences mesmerized through his mystifying acts, such as walking on the River Thames in London, turning lottery tickets into money, and even levitating, not only in front of James Corden, but also Christ the Redeemer, the statue in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. More revelations now.
94.3. This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K.
Let's talk about some of the big ones. I mean, I've seen the one in front of Christ the Redeemer in Rio de Janeiro. It was absolutely stunning. For those of you who haven't checked it out, you must go on. It's on YouTube. He actually starts levitating with the statue behind him, Dynamo does. And of course, walking on water through the Thames. I mean, it was just amazing to get reaction shots from people around. At the time, there must have been some crazy media buzz. How did people react to those two magic tricks?
I mean, walking across the River Thames was probably one of my most monumental moments. People still talk about it today, and it was back in 2011. Can you believe it? It was that long ago when I did that. It all started from when I was a kid. Where I lived, there was Delft Hill Estate and there was Woodside Estate, and separating the two estates was this lake, and all of the cool kids would meet down at the lake to hang out. And I never got invited down there. Then one day, these two guys invited me down. So I was like, oh, cool, I'm one of the cool guys now. And I went down there, and when I got there was nobody else there, and they just took me down there because they knew that I couldn't swim. So they pushed me into the lake, and I was like practically drowning. And I wished then that I could walk on water. Luckily, my friend Wayne Jowett, thanks Wayne, he saved the day and got me out of the water. Ever since then, and then when I grew up and became a magician, it became like an ambition of mine to walk across water, almost as like a, as like kind of a getting my own back on the bullies. And that was kind of something, when I got the opportunity to make Magician Impossible and to start doing these bigger shows, that I had to kind of bring that to life. And then, we filmed all over the place. Obviously we filmed in India at Varanasi, and, I caused the candles to relight on the Ganges, which was such a kind of emotional experience for me as well as for the people around me. And, I think it is about sharing these moments of wonders, because it's become...
So did you walk on the Ganges too?
I didn't walk on the Ganges this time. There was a lot of people, swimming, and there was a lot of, it was obviously a holy festival, so
sure. It
was very, very busy time at the Ganges when we filmed down there. We did think about it. I wanted to do something unique and different and special just for India. But yeah, I think, for me now, a lot of the performances, it's not even necessarily about me and my dreams. It's more about the connection with other people and showing people different narratives and different ways to look at things, because we're all, live in a skeptical world where we're told we can't do this and we can't do that. Whereas I just want to be someone who shows people a different way to approach life, and hopefully it will inspire other people to believe in themselves more.
Yeah, but Dynamo, I know magicians never tell. I remember as a kid reading the Mandrake Magician comics, and it said magicians never tell. But I've got to ask you this question, and you're free not to answer it, but how do you do it? How do you do the Christ Redeemer thing? How do you do the walking on water thing?
You know what? I dedicate my life to it, and that's the wonder. That's the right question to ask, because that's the questions I want people to think when I'm performing. I want them to just think, you know what? Like, you get a lot of people who think they know everything, but then to be able to stop someone in their tracks and just make them think, how does that work? Maybe there's more to life than I thought there was. That's the thing I'm looking for, the curiosity. Because I've always been a curious guy, and I think, sharing surprises, especially in this day and age, it's really hard to surprise people, because we have phones in our pockets that literally can give us the answers to questions at the touch of a button. So to be able to share moments of surprise with people nowadays is, it's an amazing thing.
Absolutely. The old school charm of a magician coupled with finding newer ways to create illusions for the high on tech generation. Super conversation and moments with Dynamo the Magician. I'm Hrishi K, and I bet you're enjoying this. Let's break for some Eagles and get over it. Only on 94.3 Radio 1 World, your station. The band busted with That's What I Go to School For. Dynamo the Magician is my guest of the day, and he has so much love and reverence for our country. His new show has him going to Mexico, Russia, and Japan, but he says his most memorable trip was going to Varanasi and doing his magic there by the Ganges. Right from a career-threatening illness to sketching over 200 ideas from the hospital bed, and finally back to good health with his new gig, Dynamo Beyond Belief. More conversation.
94.3. This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K.
Well, we know the football is so huge in the UK, and I've seen you do a bit of a trick with a kid in a Manchester derby. You also levitated comedian Matt Lucas 4 feet off the ground in front of a packed Emirates Stadium in London.
Well, that was a long time ago, yeah.
So talk about those.
Impossible. That was a long time, yeah. Wow. I'd forgotten about that, to be honest. Yeah, it's crazy when I think back. There's so many incredible moments that I've been able to share, and I feel like in some ways it's still like the beginning. Beyond Belief is coming out this week here in India, and I feel like it's going to almost reinvigorate people's love for magic and show them a new side to me that they haven't seen before. And I feel like everything that I went through with being ill and being in hospital and the adversity has changed me for the better, and I'm looking forward to trying to adapt to this new normal and create new magical experiences. So, who knows where it's going to take us, but it's crazy thinking back at all the things I've done. And I remember levitating Matt Lucas, and I've definitely I've had a lot of ideas for more magic involving football and that type of thing in the future. So watch this space.
And Dynamo, in that aspect, India is a very difficult country to please. In one aspect, you've got the sadhus, our spiritual gurus who've levitated, who've pulled ash out of thin air. It's almost considered spiritual, the magic. Mm-hmm. And then you have the young kids who are on their mobile phones and want technology, And I imagine that the show, Beyond Belief, will have bits of both, using electronics, the new age, as well as a little bit of spirituality.
Yeah, because of my illness and the condition, I ended up with arthritis in all the joints in my body. So I had to go back back to basics because I couldn't shuffle the cards the way I normally do. I couldn't handle the props the way I normally handle them. So I had to almost find a new approach. And in some ways, it meant almost going, for want of a better expression, I had to kind of go back to analog. And then obviously throughout the show, I kind of go back to the future. So it's a great juxtaposition of, to the simplicity in the magic, but also then bringing it into a modern era and for the new generation, using the things that the children of today are used to seeing. But yeah, I think it's definitely the best magic I've done by far. The way the show is shot is so cinematic. We filmed everything using anamorphic prime lenses, which give it a real cinematic feel. They're the sort of lenses you use to film feature films. Like they use the same lenses on some of the Star Wars films.
Wow.
So it's that type of level that we tried to get, but we still wanted to have the raw street feel of it. And we tried to film all of the magic with just one take. So there's no camera edits, there's no cuts, so that you're seeing everything as you would if you were there in person, just to give it a real different dynamic than any other magic show out there.
Yeah, you've got to be sensitive to the fact that kids now can, with their apps, put anything in their living rooms and their bedrooms, from bears to magicians. So you've got to make it really real and make sure that it doesn't, sound CGI or look, graphics or VFX oriented. So that's a really important point that you made there. Journeying into the world of magic and illusion with Dynamo. Still more to come. Don't go anywhere. My name is Hrishi K, and this is 94.3 Radio 1, One World, your station. Justin Timberlake and Za on the playlist now. This one's The Other Side. The crooner Sam Smith with Baby You Make Me Crazy. Love the tremble in his voice. In the mold of Harry Houdini and David Blaine and David Copperfield. And of course, our very own Hrishi K. All legendary magicians comes Dynamo. And I'm chatting with the illusionist as his new show Dynamo Beyond Belief is about to hit Indian TV screens tomorrow.
94.3. This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K.
When I was a kid, there used to be a massive magician called PC Sarkar, and then the PC Sarkar Jr.
Yeah.
And now his whole family is into magic, and, they live in the eastern part of India, which is Kolkata and things like that. And, he used to wear this huge Maharaja hat and come in and go out, and it used to be a furious, frenetic pace show. I can never forget that. My dad took me as a kid. You mentioned your granddad briefly. They always say magicians start off with card tricks. But do you remember going to your first magic show? Where was it and who took you?
So it's really interesting, right? So the first person that showed me magic was my grandpa, but he didn't do card tricks or anything like that. He had matchbox and it was full of matches, and when he put it on my hand, he'd snap his fingers and the matches would disappear. And I don't know I still don't know how he did it. And then he would show me things, using beer mats and stuff that he would do at the local pub. But then the first actual magic show that I got to see live, I was kind of spoiled in some ways. I was on a vacation with my grandpa and we went to a place called Memphis in America. And it just so happened at the time, David Copperfield was filming his latest TV special. And my grandpa had surprised me, and he's got us tickets to be in the live audience. So that was the actual first proper magic show that I'd ever seen. So I got to see the legend David Copperfield doing his thing for his Tornado of Fire special. And, seeing someone like that kind of perform on such a big stage, it definitely was a huge inspiration and showed me that maybe I can make more of magic than I maybe was doing at the time.
And are you completely self-taught? I mean, now you've got YouTube specials and this and that, but back in the day, I'm sure everything wasn't online. Did you read books? Did you see shows? How do you see the telly and then teach yourself?
Most of the things were self-taught. I think my grandpa would show me things, but then I would try and develop it. And reading superhero comic books, I would just be inspired, thinking, all right, what if I could do this for real? And I would take inspiration from that. And I also was quite young and naive. We didn't have a TV license, so I couldn't watch TV. But my after school job was working in a video store, and the store owner gave me a VHS player, and he would let me take home films each night. And I'd watch all these movies, but being naive and not having television, not really understanding the world at the time, I thought that all of these films were like documentaries. So I thought Superman was a real person. And everything I was watching, like James Bond, was a real guy. So I would try and say, I want to be like these guys when I'm older, and try and bring their ideas to life. And then that's kind of, always inspired me.
Was your granddad a magician, or was he just passionate about magic?
My grandpa was a soldier in World War II.
Wow.
And whilst he was in the war, I believed he picked up some skills to keep the morale high for all the troops, in the spare time when they were in the barracks, and he, as long as I've ever known him, he would always show me really cool bits of magic, and he was just like the life of the party. But he wasn't a profession for him. When he left the army, he worked in the mills in Bradford. We had a lot of the big wool industry in Bradford and silk industry. So he worked in the mills. As for me, he was the most incredible person I'd ever met, and he's a constant source of inspiration. And I feel like me performing is trying to keep his legacy alive, and hopefully, I know he's no longer around, no longer with us, but hopefully, he'd be proud of where we've taken magic and taken his legacy.
That's beautiful. The special bond between grandfather and grandson as demonstrated by Dynamo and his late loving grandpa. Last leg of conversation still to go with the illusionist and magician who does mind-boggling things. I'm Hrishi K, and on 94.3 Radio 1 One World, your station, it's time to bring on Nickelback and their song Far Away. Enjoy. The New Radicals with a cracker of a hit, a personal favorite called You Get What You Give. What a roller coaster of a ride this interview with Dynamo the magician has been. His life, his experiences, his magic and his shows. Saving the best for last now.
94.3. This is Good Morning Mumbai with Hrishi K.
Listen, I've seen you on the Jonathan Ross show with Emma Watson. I've seen you on stage with Ed Sheeran. You've done a bit with Snoop Dogg. There have been so many memorable moments, celebrity or otherwise. Talk to me about a memorable show, a gig that you've been part of.
So, I think, I'll talk about two. One of them was a bit of a surprise. I did this show in India. It was the last time I was in India. It was a couple of years ago, and I was flown out to perform at a private party. I did not expect at the private party to be hanging out with SRK. That was insane. He's such a cool guy. So yeah, it was a private event, so it wasn't like we could get a picture or anything, it was just because it was a closed party. But yeah, that was really cool to kind of meet someone, he's like an absolute legend. So that was something that when I think of my last trip to India, I was like, whoa, that was cool. I wonder what will happen next time I come. And then I think for me, the biggest surprise was when I was performing my show at the O2 Arena. The nighttime show, we were going to be filming it live for television, because it was like the end of the Seeing is Believing tour, and we were going to do a big extravaganza where it goes out live on TV at the same time. There was a matinee show in the afternoon, and I told my manager not to do any meet and greets after the matinee show so I could get myself ready for the TV filming in the evening. But he came knocking on my door after the show, and he goes, can you come meet my friend? He's brought some kids, just come get a picture with them. And I was like, alright then, we still won't be doing any pictures in the meantime so I could get ready for the television special. And I walked in this room, and Brad Pitt came running up to me with his kids, and he was like, Dynamo, that was insane. And he was trying to recreate the magic, and him and the kids were just loving it, and he bought a Dynamo magic kit and the magic books and all the merchandise. Yeah, I didn't even know that Brad Pitt knew who I was. So to see him kind of backstage, my manager he didn't tell me, but he knew that he'd secretly come to the show and brought the kids. They'd hide out a whole box, and basically they watched the show, and then, he brought him backstage, and I got to hang out with Brad Pitt. So, that was a big surprise and something I'm always going to remember. I still get a little bit starstruck, with people, because for me, when I'm performing magic, I am obviously it's what I love to do, and it's when I feel the most alive. But then when I'm not performing, it's like, what do you say to someone as cool as Brad Pitt or SRK? Or, it's crazy.
So you've covered both Bollywood as well as Hollywood, and you've just proved that you're a Bradford boy. I mean, they're surrounded by Asians. You must have grown up, and, Shah Rukh is such a legend, and the Asians must have really driven home that point back in Yorkshire. That's wonderful. Listen, is there a trick that you really want to do? Something that something like walking on the Thames, something that really speaks to your soul, and you want to work on it and do it in the future?
I think first and foremost, I really do want to create a live tour that can be brought to India. I wanted to bring Seeing is Believing to India before, but I think it was just trying to set it all up. It's very difficult. The infrastructure is, it's kind of hard to try and make it work. But definitely, the fan base I've got in India and the support that I seem to get when the messages I get online are absolutely incredible, and it just really makes me want to be able to bring some magic to India again, and just to meet as many people as possible and to travel around all the beautiful places. So I think an India tour is something that I've got my sights set on in the future. So
this is the time to do it, because Bono and the boys from U2, Katy Perry, Dua Lipa, they all got their planes in with their gear, flew down and did some great gigs. And, we could do with a live Dynamo gig. That would be lots of fun.
Yeah, it'd be amazing, and it'd be amazing to do it, and, have all the people that, watch the TV shows just to get to come and see it live and get to experience something they'll never experience ever again.
My last question is, what do you want to say to all those young budding magicians, just kids in their backyards or at small little birthday parties doing card tricks, hoping to be the next David Blaine, David Copperfield, the next Dynamo? What is your advice to young budding magicians?
Keep practicing every day, work really hard and perform as much as possible. But most importantly, have fun with it, because when you're enjoying it, then your audience are going to enjoy it as well. And, it's amazing actually. I get so many videos sent on Triller and on Instagram and on my YouTube and, even on Twitter from all of the fans in India and the young magicians sending me their videos of them performing and asking me for my, feedback. So I see some amazing ones. So it's really cool because, it's really good that they're using modern technology to share their skills. And I look forward to seeing where the future of magic goes, because it's definitely in safe hands. But yeah, keep practicing, keep performing, and have fun.
Dynamo, I can't wait to see Dynamo Beyond Belief. All the love in the world from your India fans. Thank you for this conversation and speak soon. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Hrishi. Have a good one. Stay safe.
That's Dynamo the Magician. Can't wait to catch him in Dynamo Beyond Belief. My name is Hrishi K, and time for me to play you some Kid Rock and all summer long. Enjoy this only on 94.3 Radio 1 One World, your station.